Do you want to understand money, but you just don't know where to start? Maybe you have debt and you just feel overwhelmed and don't know how to pay it off. Maybe you want to be extremely wealthy and you don't know where to start with that either. I'm your girl. Today's the day. We're going to talk about it. I've been doing a series on my TikTok where I work on sharing the knowledge of being financially literate. I myself am not an expert, but all the tips that I've been getting and sharing have been from sources who have worked on Wall Street for over 10 years, extremely successful business owners, books, podcasts, all of those resources, and all that is still listed on my TikTok with each point. But I wanted a place to put all of these tips in one spot where you guys can watch it, learn from it, take notes, whatever you need to do. So if you're looking to better understand wealth, get some tips on how to eliminate debt and increase your wealth, then I'm your girl. Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl, gracetorie, and I'm back with a whole new podcast episode. So as I stated, I am working on becoming better with money. If you follow me on YouTube, subscribe or whatever the word is, and you saw my previous video called I think it was called like Rich Girl Budget Planner Tutorial or something like that, you can ignore that if you want. If you want to use that as a resource, go for it. Basically what was happening is, like I mentioned, I have the program on TikTok where I have been like sharing all of my tips and things that I've been finding from very credible resources, and I created a budget and you guys really wanted to see my budget. So with it having all of these formulas and very intricate things, I wanted to make it optional for you guys to purchase it if you don't want to go through the process of doing all the formulas, setting it all up yourself. So it is on my Etsy, and the link to purchase it is on that video with the tutorial. That is the video tutorial on how to use it, so you can watch that, and if it's something you're interested in, the link is literally in the description. It is $15, but if you use the promo code THATGIRL in all caps, then it will be $5. So that's something to keep in mind. I just want to give a little PSA if you guys saw that and you were confused. That is my budget planner because you girlies asked for it, and I always deliver. So that's what's going on. I just want to share all the tips that I found with you. These are from people like Katie Song, who owns like a financial wellness business that's really successful. Mrs. Dow Jones, she's Mrs. Dow Jones. Like her reputation precedes her. Go look up her Instagram. She is a badass bitch. Michael Bosstick has some. He owns Dear Media with his wife. Lauren and him did a couple of episodes talking about that and meeting with people like Katie and other very successful financial people. So that's where all of these tips are coming from. I just want to make sure that you guys know that I'm like not out here giving you financial advice and it's them, and I'm just reiterating what they're saying because it's really important that you're getting advice from credible sources, since it can be like a waste of time if you put all this time and energy into watching these sources and they're not credible. They're just like some girly on Instagram. So yeah, I want you guys to know that all of this is credible, and if you want to learn more, definitely check out Katie and Mrs. Dow Jones and Michael Bob, like all of them, the him and her podcast. I've been going through, what podcast have I been going through? What is it called? Not My Brain Breaking. I've been listening to a lot of Girls That Invest, that podcast, and that's been really helpful. So those are all great resources where they are credible. So that's where you should start after you watch this. So without further ado, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the things. It helps out the podcast more than you know, and it takes less than a second. If you're a girly who's looking for a community of women who are all very ambitious and looking for people to grow with, then this podcast is for you. So definitely check it out, and like I said, do all the fun things. So we're gonna go ahead and jump on in. I'm gracetorie, and you're listening to That Girl the Podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in, because the new episode is starting now. So I wrote these notes just like in random places because I was like listening while I was working all day. So I kind of have a couple of random notebooks, but we're gonna jump on into it. Some of these seem a little bit duh, but I feel like I need to say it just in case, and it's kind of the foundation for the other things that are a bit more complicated, so just want to make sure we're on the same playing field. I got you. You're not going to feel dumb if you didn't know any of this, because some of this I didn't know either. The first thing that everyone said across the board is if you get some sort of bonus or some sort of, increase in pay through some way, that does not mean that you need to spend more. You need to be spending the same amount that you were spending before you got the bonus, and then put that money towards other things like investing and building your wealth, paying off your debt. So that was one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't understand. Like, they get a raise and they're like, yes, I can spend more, I can do more. And it's like, yes, you technically can. I'm not telling you what you can and can't do. It's just that the people who end up becoming millionaires and end up being wealthy and end up starting businesses typically don't think that way. When they make more money, they put that money to work. They don't just use it for joy and fun, even though you really want to. So money at the end of the day is just a game of self-discipline. So making more does not mean spending more. It means spending the same amount and putting that money towards something where it's going to grow. Your savings should have 3 to 6 months income saved in it. So if you are working on savings, then once you get 3 to 6 months saved up, you don't need to necessarily keep putting things in savings. If you're not an investor, then by all means put it in your savings account. But if you want to invest in other things, as long as you have 3 to 6 months and you have like a 401k and things like that, and you're covered in that area, then you don't need to be throwing all of your money into savings, because if your money is in a savings account, it's not going to be working for you. You want to put it in places where it's working for you. Now, if it's a high yield savings account, that's different. Your savings honestly should be a high yield savings account, 100%. But if it's not, don't just keep putting money into it where it's going to sit, because money doesn't turn into more money if it's sitting there. You need to invest it. You need to put it in the high yield savings account. You need to put it places where it's going to grow. If you are just getting started and you don't know where to start, the first few things that you need to start with are know your cash flow. So know what's coming in and what's going out, down to the penny. This was one thing I did before anything else. I wrote down every single thing that I had spent that month, and if it was like a bill, I looked at the past like 2 or 3 months to get an understanding of the estimate, and that gave me a way better understanding of where my money was going. Rocket Money is a great way to do this. It lets you add in like all of your accounts. So if you have credit cards and things, it lets you put all of it on there. But I'm a very visual person, and once I put everything, I literally put it all in an Excel sheet and just put like where it came from, what it went towards, which debit or credit card it came out of, like all of that I wrote down so that I could really see what was going on, where most of my money was coming from, and that gave me such a great understanding. So that is where you want to start. You also want to know how much you're spending. Kind of mentioned that has to do with the cash flow. And then the third thing is open a Roth IRA. You need to start that now rather than later. So those are the 3 things you want to start with. Live within your means. This seems pretty duh, but in a world full of social media where people are just like doing a lot of things for the performative side of it, like they want you to think that they have a lot more money than they do. Don't be that person. Live within your means. If you can't go out to get coffee with your friends, then don't. Maybe you should suggest doing something free, like going for a walk or things like that. Don't put yourself in a tough spot to keep up with the trends. Live within your means. This is a game of you versus you. This isn't you versus anybody else. So comparison is just gonna hurt you. You really don't want to be even entertaining that game. So live within your means. If you are getting into the world of stocks and investing, make sure that what you're opening is an individual brokerage account. I haven't done a ton of research into stocks yet because I'm mainly focusing on increasing my cash flow and decreasing my debt. But once I get into that, I will definitely do an episode on it. But individual brokerage account is the best one that you should open. Usually when you go to open a account, it has like different options. That's the one you want to select. Public.com is the one that Mrs. Dow Jones sings the praises of. I personally haven't gotten into it that much because I am not on my stocks journey that much yet. I have one with E-Trade, but it hasn't done a ton. I don't know if it's because I don't know what I'm doing or if it's because E-Trade is bad, but I just don't know a ton about stocks yet. So that side of the world, I'm not very knowledgeable on, and once I am, I'll let you know. I do recommend Fundrise if you want a way to grow money. REITs are a great way to do that, and you can do that through Fundrise. I do have an account through them. I froze it right now, and I'm not putting anything into it because I'm focusing on debt, like I said, but they are real estate investing, so if you're looking for a good account to get with real estate, Fundrise is the way to go. And then make sure you're doing an REIT. You can only do those through their website. A book that you should read, I know this is bouncing around, it's just because my notes are bouncing around. Katie Song, and that's Katy, has a book called Financially Fearless. It's longer than that, but that's like the gist of the title. Type in Financially Fearless by Katie Song on Amazon, you'll find it. That is a really good book. It's on my list to read because she is just a force to be reckoned with. Her tips are so good, and I really cannot wait to crack open that book. It's on the list. So when you are putting things into savings, you need to be saving 10% of your income as a rule of thumb. And also, when you are putting things into your savings, you should be doing that first. Before you pay your bills, before you do anything else, put 10% of your income into your savings. Some people have it where it automatically goes into your savings account. Some people don't. Whatever is easiest for you. Like I said, I prefer a high yield savings account, so if you're opening one, look into that. Mine is through Capital One, but I've gotten some better ones. Like Public has one that's 4.1% right now, which is good. So there's quite a few options when it comes to high yield savings account. Definitely shop around. But make sure you're putting 10% of your income every single paycheck into that, and do that before you do anything else. You don't even need to see that money. It needs to go directly into your savings. If you are planning on buying a house versus renting, Michael Bostic was the one that was talking about this, and he brought up the point of if you're not going to keep the house for 5 to 7 years, it's really not a huge investment. Like, some people are able to do less than that, but you're going to kind of put yourself in a bind if it's less than 5 to 7 years. So renting should be the option that you go towards until you're ready to settle down. So keeping a house for at least 5 to 7 years is the way to go. I know for us, we've talked about buying a house. If we buy a house, it probably won't be our forever house because we want to build. So my plan would be to buy a house for like 2 to 3 years and then turn it into an additional form of income by renting it out. So that's something you could do. You don't necessarily have to live in the house for 5 to 7 years, but you do have to own it. So if you can turn it around and make profit off of it, go off, queen. It's just keeping it for that long. Michael had this quote that I just really thought was great. He was talking about how people who are truly have a lot of money don't necessarily flaunt it, and he said that wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is what is in your stocks. Wealth is what is in your savings account. Wealth is what is in your 401k. That is what your wealth is. It's not things that you have to take a loan out on. It's not things that are flashy. It can be, but the people that are growing wealth and know what they're doing, it's in what you don't see. It's not in all the things that you show off to everyone. So this is the order in which people should be handling their money. Some of this is up for debate, and I will get into that in a second, but I'll explain it first. Like, I'll just give the rundown. So spend less than you make is first and foremost. Know if you can save, because you can't always save. I feel like savings is a luxury. Until I pay off debt, my savings account is kind of taking a back burner. So definitely know if you can save. Pay off your high interest rate debt. Anything above a 7% is considered a high interest rate debt. Save your emergency fund, and then you move on to long-term investments. So your emergency fund and your debt are interchangeable. Some people have more of a soft landing if they get into a situation where they need their savings than others. Some people do a little bit of both. So I am doing like a 90-10 situation where 90% is going towards paying off my debt because I really don't have like a ton. I'm mainly focusing on credit cards, and then things like student loans and my car are a little bit more long term, so that will be something that I'll split more evenly with savings. But I'm doing like 90% debt and 10% savings right now, whereas some people are doing 100% debt, 0% savings. Some people are doing 100% savings, and then once they have that 6 months done, they move on to their debt. It doesn't really matter what order for those two. It's just whatever you can personally do. If you have more of a soft landing, you can do that. Now, one thing I do want to say is, if you're paying off your credit cards with the intent that if shit hits the fan, your credit card is your fallback plan and you can just max it out again and you don't need a savings, that is not correct. You're just going to be digging your hole deeper. So make sure you have savings and you're not using your credit card as your backup plan. Been there, done that, not great. But overall, spend less than you make. Know what you can save, if you can save. Do your debt or your emergency fund, and then invest in long-term investments once you have the wealth to do that. You should be, in order to grow your wealth, getting a 15% raise every 2 to 3 years. Your paycheck should be split up by 50% needs is what your money goes towards, 30% wants, and then 20% needs. So that kind of means like your investing needs. So Savings, bills is 50, want is like fun money, and then 20% needs is like investing, but you can increase that to 25 to 30 and then just decrease your wants. Just make sure that you're doing at least the 50, 30, 20 minimum. I already talked about REITs. Let's move on to our last little notebook piece. We are getting there. So investing in successful company equivalents in other countries is a great way to kind of predict the stock market. I do want to have the caveat that you can never, ever, ever predict the stock market. But one way that a lot of people have made a lot of money is they look at something that is blowing up in the US and then they look at the equivalent in like China or the UK or Russia or something like that where there is a market for it and they invest in that equivalent. So like, for example, Amazon over here has a counterpart in, I believe, India, where it's the same thing, it's just like a different name, but the concept is the same. So the people that invested in that right after Amazon started blowing up have made so much money. Walmart has an equivalent somewhere else. Apple has an equivalent somewhere. Well, maybe not Apple. You know what I'm saying, though? Like, if there's something that's blowing up here, there's an equivalent in another country. So make sure that you are paying attention to that and then investing in that right before it blows up. Because if it blows up in the US, it's probably going to blow up in another country fairly soon. So when you are learning about money, what you need to do is find parts about money that you enjoy, and that's what you're going to start with when you're learning. Because I know for me it was very scary and overwhelming and I didn't understand what was going on, and that's because I immediately started looking at stocks because I was like, oh, stocks are the way to make money. I just need to invest in stocks. I didn't care about debt. I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care about the market. I was just like, stocks, stocks, stocks. And I don't know a single thing about stocks, so I was extremely overwhelmed. I would listen to like one podcast episode and then I put it down for like 6 months because I was like, that was terrifying. I never want to look at that again. So when you are learning about money and first dipping your toes in, you want to start with topics that you understand enough and you enjoy. So like an example is if you enjoy organizing data, start with your budget. If you enjoy researching, watch documentaries on the market and how it's worked previously. If you enjoy researching, you can also listen to podcasts, take notes. That's what I've been doing, is I've really just been like taking notes from podcasts or books or things like that because I love that. I miss being in school where you just like took notes and researched all the time. Can you tell that I was a STEM major? Was it considered STEM? I was a research major. I almost went into genetic research, which is a story for another time. But I really enjoy research, so being able to do this has kind of lit a fire in me that was dimmed after graduating. So yeah, find the part of it that you enjoy, the piece of it that you enjoy. If you really enjoy the sales part of it, watch that and figure out how you can be more salesy, what you can sell, things like that. I think that the most important thing, if you're in a position where you have a lot of debt and you are trying to float, you are struggling, because same, it's important that you increase your cash flow and decrease your debt. And there are a lot of ways to do that. For me, I talked about this, I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast or on my TikTok, but passive income is where I am most interested because I have a lot of side hustles, have a lot going on, and passive income, once you set it up and you kind of maintain it, but it's very hands-off, it does a lot on its own. Like, it's going to grow on its own. So that is what I'm working on. REITs are a form of that, but there is a little bit of risk. Things that are passive income are like getting commission for something, royalties, things like that. So that is what I'm focusing on. But at the core, I think that the next thing I'm going to research is you just need to understand marketing and you'll be able to make money doing anything. More specifically, in this day and age, you need to understand social media, because if you can market something on social media, you can sell it and you can do anything. So I'm going to really be diving into the psychology behind marketing, the world of marketing, because if you can sell something, you'll be fine for the rest of your life. It's a skill you can take with you for the rest of your life. And at the end of the day, the way to make money is to provide value to someone. So you need to prove to them that you're providing value, and you need to follow through and actually provide that value. I think a lot of people think that marketing tactics are like scammy because you're kind of convincing someone. And I think a lot of people view that as manipulation, but it's not. Like, if you're actually providing the value and you do what you say you're going to do, it's not scammy. And so that's what we're focusing on, is being able to market things that are actually beneficial and going to help people and following through. It's just like not being able to brand it correctly. Like I struggle with branding and selling correctly. So I'm going to really dive into marketing next. I can definitely share that with you guys if you guys want an episode all about how to market yourself, how to brand, how to sell things, and how to use it to make money. That's the journey I'm about to embark on next. But that is pretty much it. Oh, I do want to mention Mrs. Dow Jones on her website. She has a free debt planner. So if you put in your debt on this planner, it calculates how long it'll take you to pay it off and how much you need to put towards everything. So I highly recommend checking that out. That is one thing that I did and it helped me out quite a bit. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Let me know what you learned, if you learned anything down below, if you're able to comment. I'm looking at you, Spotify and YouTube. If you have any additional tips that you want to share with the group, we're all growing together. And as women who are trying to grow in our financial literacy, because let's face it, it's like scientifically proven that we don't have as much financial literacy as men. We need to stick together. So if you have any tips, share them. I'll share my tips with you and we're going to do this together. We're going to grow together and we're going to grow boss our way to the top. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed your Super Bowl Sunday. I have my Chiefs little gear on. I did a little Taylor Swift inspired game day look. So I posted that on my TikTok as well as a short on YouTube if you want to see the whole look. But I'm vibing. I'm having a good time. So I'm going to edit this, get this up, and then I'm going to go watch the Super Bowl. I hope you guys have a great day and you become the wealthiest, best girly on the world. In the world? Why can't I talk today? I don't know. My coffee machine's broken, so I found that out this morning, and I haven't had caffeine, so that's why we're a little bit all over the place. But I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye, guys.